some key factors that new investors should consider when selecting mutual funds to align with their financial goals? And the second part of my question is, are there any specific kinds of mutual funds that investors should pay attention to for their short, medium, and long-term goals?
Yeah, so I think with respect to the first part of your question, it's very very important for investors to break up their monies into buckets that they feel comfortable with, and what happens is, because the newer generation is so social in terms of how they interact, whether in the physical world or online. I think there is a very large amount of peer pressure that happens, sometimes for the good and sometimes for the bad. And therefore, it's a good idea to step back a little bit, think about why I'm really doing what I'm doing, and then think very carefully about whether innovation uh, is the biggest thing that I should focus on, so that I can socially have a conversation, which is very cool, or whether it needs to really align to what my end objective is. And clearly, even within a very closely knit group of people, friends, colleagues at work, etc., you will find that because they come from different social backgrounds, they come from different levels of wealth, they come from different historical exposures within the family to money, etc., they could be very different mindsets. And therefore, one of the biggest challenges that people face is, getting pressurized in the newer generation by someone else to do something because it seems uncool to do the opposite. And I think it's really hard to beat it. I think just like staying the course is very difficult, like Dhirendra mentioned. It's also very difficult to not do what everyone else is doing. And this plays out in bull markets. It plays out in bear markets. Greed and fear are such powerful emotions that, as much as you want to sort of go away from them and you read literature about it, when it sort of hits you, suddenly that part of your brain just behaves very differently. So I think for a lot of younger people, uh, the one of the best ways that we've seen things can happen is through nudges. And I think what technology has done is it has nudged good behavior very often. So, for example, if you can automate your savings process or your investment process, it's a very powerful nudge. Uh, if you can also automate your withdrawal process, I think it's an even more important nudge. Because what we hear constantly from investors is, what, we figured out that investing all the time is a great model. But when do we exit? No one can tell us when to exit. And very often we have to tell them that, you have to do your exit the way you do your entry, which is gradual. You don't know when financial markets will correct. And it's very painful if you believe that someone around has a crystal ball to be able to tell you that. Uh, I think it's important to accept that both getting in and getting out, if it is automated, very often will work to your benefits more than anything else. Coming to the long term, short term, medium term piece that you spoke about, and I think this is such a powerful thing because the definition of long term, medium term, and short term has changed over generations. Um, in a few generations ago, uh, short term might have meant 5 to 10 years. Uh, Medium term might have meant 10 to 20 years, and long term may have meant beyond 20 years. Um, and that's why people who worked in jobs, stayed there probably in a single employment all their life, or maybe they did two employments if they were aggressively sort of tuned at that particular stage. Uh, when we talk to investors today, the first thing that we have to ask them is, when we talk to them about short, medium, and long term, what is your definition? And the definition is so variable because for a lot of people, long term is equal to 1 year. And we know with equity investing, historically, long term is not 1 year. Long term is also not 3 years to 5 years, like a lot of people popularly believe. Long term in equity investing will very often be 10 to 20 years at least. And therefore, what will end up happening is these definitions and education about definition of short term, medium term, long term need to be placed on the table with investment products very, very clearly. I think very clear up to 3 years in our view is short term. Anything between 3 years to 10 years is medium term, and anything above 10 years can probably be longer term. And I want to use an example here because some of the products might link into that. Somehow the belief amongst a lot of people is that life and investments are till retirement, and then beyond that there is no concept of long term. Everything is short term. That's
Hmm.
absolutely untrue. Retirement itself is a 25, 30, 35-year journey very often. And therefore, it's as long term as your working career. And if it's going to be as long term as your working career, your investment strategy also cannot be built by believing that retirement is an end point. It is only a milestone along the way at which you may want
Hmm.
to reset the way you think. And sometimes the way you think may have to continue in exactly the manner that you thought when you were 25 or 30. As far as products are concerned, very clearly in that short-term bucket, the up to 3-year bucket, it's very, very important to look at instruments which are debt-oriented. In fact, you should assume that this bucket may very often not even beat inflation in any meaningful manner. And therefore, you
Hmm.
accept it as saying that this is my coverage to ensure that my goals that are coming up in the next 3 years are not compromised. And if I have to do a little lower than inflation during this period of time, I'm okay. I can try to be as efficient as I can be. So I can use debt funds. I can use, uh, you know, uh, maybe funds that have some level of arbitrage within it to sort of control risk, etc. But very clearly this
Hmm.
bucket is your safe bucket. Then you have your say 3 year plus to 10-year bucket, where ideally you want to look at using a combination of hybrid instruments, and uh, you can even consider some pure equity, but you need to keep your costs very low as you go about this entire journey. And then the 10-year
All
plus
right.
is ideally suited for long-term instruments like equity, and I think that's the way that you can actually break it up.
Absolutely. One point I want to take forward what Vishal had mentioned and bring you in, Mr. Rao, is that avoiding the herd mentality, especially when it comes to investing. Now, that's where the role of financial education and literacy that plays a part, because it helps you recognize the landscape and improves your financial wellness. So, a quick point of view from you on how it can be promoted effectively, because there are obviously a lot of initiatives that you and Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund do. What more can be done? A quick point of view from you before I go off to the other panelists.
Thanks once again, Gautam. I think Vishal put it very nicely in the beginning about the nudge, and at the same time, Parikshit spoke about that education, financial education. And this financial education is not one time; it is going to be a continuous role it will play. It is like you are doing this throughout the life. What you learn in the beginning is not enough. And the role, if I look at financial education, can give a better understanding of the finance. But that doesn't mean that that can lead you to the financial wellness. But this better understanding will take you to giving an informed investment decisions, which will in turn impact on your financial situation. Here comes, your between aspirations and allocations. As earlier, I think it is rightly mentioned by Amritan, the role of advisor. It's a education. It's not a formal, informal. There is an advisor who play also a very vital role. And when you have this right education, probably it helps you on every part of your investments. Whether you are creating a budget, whether you are managing the debt, whether you are investing wisely, and when you are planning for your better tomorrow or better future. And here again comes when it comes up the nudging, when again Vishal what he spoke about is your belief and your behavior. These nudges can happen with somebody who is an advisor to you next to you. It is not on a click of button or I can get into the Google. And today we talk about EQ and IQ, but the FQ, the financial quotient, which always lead us for a even not only investing. Today it is also leading us to a better credit rating. If you want to get a better credit rating, you need to have that financial quotient right. And that again, as I said earlier, it's a good financial decisions, and that in turn give all broadly on your financial stability, or it can be a reducing your debt, and it's also impacting on your improved life. I mean, today we are talking about financial wellness, And when it comes to promoting, where over a period of last 10 years at Aditya Birla, we have done many initiatives. And when we said, like from this 10 years of journey, what I learned one thing is make this financial literacy accessible and very engaging. How you can engaging is like, we most of the times we talk about physical fitness. Can I talk about physical fitness? The corporate workshops which we do and online courses which you can do very differently. And you can have these community engagements. We go to the cantonments and talk to the Faujis. We go to the schools and colleges. Even at a school level, we do some education programs called My First Finance Lessons. At college, we do these programs called My First Paycheck. Means if you can get this early impact, early education can make a lot of difference. And then if there is other modes like while I'm driving, can I listen to some podcasts around this? And probably I look at this as a education. The tools which is involved today is you can have a content for every intent, and that intent I call it as a triple R movement. What is that intent you need to do is which you need to be a rich content, which need to be a relevant content, which is a relatable content. I can't. I need to be the always which I'm talking about the latest what it can happen. And that education can have a switch mode I call. That switch mode for me is go to the schools first, and like create go to the workplaces and make that investor communities to engage, because the community will have a common behavior of getting into learn. And then here comes the technology, and the currently we are adapted to many changes, and how you can bring that technology. And everything what you do, when whether I'm doing from a fund house or whether I'm doing from an amphi, I need to have that customized curriculum and customer centric curriculum. I can look at is you need to get that holistic approach. And if I can get this, I think whole theme we talk about today is Gargar Mutual Fund and Hargar SIP. And that education, of course, this is a purely at the mutual fund level. But if I look at the financial education broadly on a BFSI level, I use the acronym called BFSI. Teach people about budgeting, people teach about financing. That is, what loans to take, what loan not to take, and focus on your savings. I think earlier Dhiren spoke about, and then right investing. And look at my wonderful panelist. I look at, when you are looking at not just education, Vishal comes with a plan ahead. All of us can look at long term as a plan ahead. And, when it comes to Dhiren comes with a lot of value in the research. So use that value research. As Parikshit spoke about, education is the key for all of us. And when Amrita speaks about advisor, if this all puts together, financial education can become a continuum for lifetime as your financial investments.
An investor education and awareness initiative of Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.